What's up, dudes? Max here, back to talk a bit more about Dragon Ball FighterZ, as some stuff happened during the event itself at E3, where the game was first shown off that we probably were questioning a whole bunch about the game, but was actually revealed a little bit later. And I also wanted to talk about a little bit of my experience talking to the publishers of the game, which is Bandai Namco, and kind of what's going on. The number one question I had while I was at the event was, is this game being made by Daisuke, who is the guy largely responsible for everything that was Guilty Gear over the past 20 years or so? He's one of the bigger reasons the game is as awesome as it is. And with all that being said, I was curious if a lot of his influence, if not ideas, were being put into the game right now, and no one could give me a straight answer, so we do not have a direct answer whether or not Daisuke is involved with the game. But the bit of info I did get that I tried to echo a little bit back to the guys that are publishing the game, which is Bandai Namco, was that this game is much different than every other Dragon Ball game that's kind of out there right now, between all the ones that are multiplayer or online multiplayer or focused around kind of 3D arena fighting. Kind of those games are designed for the Dragon Ball casual audience in mind, and not specifically balance or things that are really hardcore fighting game oriented. From the producer as well as the guys at Bandai Namco, they told me directly this game is being designed for fighting game players in mind, specifically for the aspects of how the game is centered about how players play it. In some other games, you can get gear to make your character better or do more damage or something like that when you actually progress through the story modes or just play the game. That is not the case in any way with Dragon Ball FighterZ. This game is absolutely going to be focused around, if you want your character to be better, it is going to be skill-based. And while some of us are like, oh, that's cool, I mean, of course we want a fighting game to be skill-based, that's the thing. This one is specifically designed around a roster of characters fighting each other and the balance amongst the roster and counterpicking and usual fighting game stuff. And from a lot of people and the echoing comments of folks that were at the event that were waiting for Dragon Ball FighterZ for a long time, they were saying the same thing, that they've been waiting for a hardcore Dragon Ball fighting game for the longest damn time, and this game is finally satiating that request, which is fantastic to say the least, because it plays well and it looks friggin' great. But there were a few other concerns I had, because at the point where they start saying it's designed for the hardcore fighting game player, I immediately start getting worried in regards to Street Fighter V stuff, where that game was kind of designed for hardcore fighting game guys and esports. And I was hoping that wasn't the case specifically with this game, where it's being designed as a full game, but it absolutely is catering towards the hardcore fighting game audience. And luckily, the producer of the game, Tomoko Hiroki, did have some interviews regarding all of this, and the big one was in regards to its story mode. She responded that even though the focus of the game right now is really about the multiplayer and the combat, they are absolutely going to be offering modes for single player. And in parallel of things that are like story mode itself, they're going to also offer several other single-player modes that are not multiplayer, that the casual players will have a lot more to do than just playing online. We all know that right now they're probably going to be taking the online fairly seriously, because there is going to be a beta that's going to be happening in the next couple months or so, which is fan-freaking-tastic. And it's also just reassuring that Japanese fighting game developers are taking online seriously. But it is also good to know that this isn't just going to be a game that is focused only around its multiplayer, that you're going to have a lot more to do, because I've already thought of several different modes that would be absolutely awesome for a 3 versus 3 fighting game that can maybe incorporate local multiplayer. There's just a ton of stuff you can do with a 3v3 engine with all the characters on the screen. I'm excited, and that's even just casual stuff in terms of it being a video gamey-ass video game. The other one that a lot of people have questions about are transformation supers. You might have seen my previous videos where there's a character transforming from one form to another, or like a higher, more powerful form. And right now in the game, they're pretty much cinematic, at least on Goku. You see him going from the first Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan 3, but then you also see Frieza transforming into Golden Frieza, and that actually costs meter and buffs out the character for a limited period of time, while Goku actually doesn't get any opportunities to just transform into Super Saiyan 3. So I'm curious what they're going to do with that, and they did have some information regarding it. She responded that right now, the in-game transformations are not universal game mechanics in their own right. Where Goku transformed into Super Saiyan 3 during attack, it's not the same as Frieza, because the transformation is considered one of Frieza's attacks. Of course, you can transform into Golden Frieza for a limited time, like a big power boost, but at this time, the transformation corresponds to one of the techniques of the characters. So it doesn't mean that in the future we're not going to see something where Goku is never going to change into Super Saiyan 3 outside of his big level 3 super. You might be able to see something down the line if it makes sense with the character's story, or if they eventually start adding moves, because based on these interviews and the way they're talking about the characters and how kind of simple they are, it does seem like the characters themselves might not be fully fleshed out yet, and maybe other characters have a lot more moves and utilities that they're going to use to kind of add to a bigger move list that each character might have. It also seems that the roster for the game is going to have a much bigger variety than the usual Dragon Ball combat game that you're used to seeing. Like I said before, instead of selecting a character that is like a different kind of Super Saiyan, you're instead just going to get one character that is the way they are, meaning that they could kind of diversify the roster and maybe have characters that you're not used to seeing in a lot of these Dragon Ball combat or fighting games, which is a very good thing. They're also not specifically targeting characters from a single generation. Instead, it seems that Dragon Ball FighterZ is going to overall be a dream match type of situation based on this quote. Once again, they were saying we cannot go into much detail about any of the characters specifically, but what they can say is that they are going to choose characters to satisfy the whole Dragon Ball audience, with characters that will be spanning across multiple generations. That's really good news, especially considering that, like I said before, in a lot of other Dragon Ball games, you see like the same character in different forms, and they're completely different selectable characters kind of to fill out the roster. That usually isn't how Arc System goes about making a lot of their games. They're either going to have a transformation super, or that's going to be about it. They usually put a lot of stuff into a single character and have a really diverse roster, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is the case going forward with Dragon Ball FighterZ as well. Now, there's a couple final things I really want to mention here because they are important. I made a video about 6-7 months ago talking about the importance of crossplay when it came to Tekken 7, about the PlayStation console not really allowing crossplay between other systems, and it seems that they've come fully out on this recently, and it's causing quite a big hibbuckus that everyone's kind of playing along right now except PlayStation. And the developers of Dragon Ball FighterZ have gone on record saying that they're not actively looking into developing cross-platform play at the moment for the game. However, if there is enough requests from the audience that they potentially could make something like that. So, with that being said, I don't think there's a single person out there that would not want crossplay for a fighting game. It simply adds a bigger audience of players that are able to play the game, and as long as there's a console parity between all the versions, everyone should be good. Now, that crossplay hopefully wouldn't just extend between the PlayStation, the Xbox, as well as the PC versions. Hopefully, it could also include a potential Nintendo Switch version, which is another thing that the developers were saying if there is a big enough fan request they might look into. So, with that being said, crossplay between 4 consoles would be an absolute dream come true for a fighting game, and I really feel there is no reason why a game like this could not show up on a Nintendo Switch, much less I would love to use my Nintendo Switch to fight people if we're on a trip or something like that and everyone's using the console. If we're on the way to EVO, we could fight each other on Dragon Ball Z, like throughout local Wi-Fi. That sounds amazing. That sounds something like I would exactly want, considering it would be a brand new big fighting game that a lot of people are playing, and I could still practice that thing on the road, potentially with people in the same vehicle. I truly feel that one of the best things you can do is just to let the developers know that this is a thing that you want by going to the Bandai Namco Twitter and telling them directly that you want a Switch version of the game, you'd be willing to purchase it, as well as having cross-play support between consoles and the PC version for Dragon Ball FighterZ. I'll personally go make a tweet myself right now and link it in the description below that you guys would actively support a Switch version as well as cross-play compatibility. I want them to know that just between my audience, this is the kind of support that you can expect, that people want this, and it's a thing that really hasn't been happening. There should be Switch versions of fighting games, there should be cross-play fighting games, and if we can start a trend to make that a thing, then it's going to be great all around. Either way, that's all I got right now for Dragon Ball FighterZ. There's going to be a lot more news and information, maybe even some details in regards to the newest beta that might be happening for the game, where we get to play the game online with everyone. I just want to know when that is so I can clear my entire week up and not do anything else. Appreciate the support on that tweet and letting Bandai Namco know how you feel in regards to these issues, and hopefully, maybe we could make a change in the future. As always, guys, thank you a ton for watching. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.